Put the cuffs on him. Lauren Whitaker's command cut through the charity auction so sharply that the pianist stopped playing before finishing the measure. Beneath the chandeliers of the Whitaker Grand Hotel ballroom, more than 200 donors turned toward Matthew Sullivan, a 43-year-old maintenance contractor standing beside an empty velvet display case. Minutes earlier, that case had held the Whitaker sapphire, a necklace valued at nearly $4 million and promised as the centerpiece of the evening's children's hospital fundraiser. Now it was gone. Ms. Whitaker, I didn't take it. Your access credential opened the storage room. My credential number did. Security has video. Then preserve the original file. Lauren's expression hardened. Matt's calm sounded almost insulting beneath the circumstances. She was 39, CEO of Whitaker Hospitality, and had built her reputation on making decisions before other people finished explaining problems. Tonight, every visible fact pointed toward the man in front of her. Search his bag. A security officer opened Matt's canvas tool bag. Flashlight, multimeter, screwdrivers, electrical tape. Then, something metallic struck the table. A restricted security key. Lauren stared at it. That key opens the jewelry storage cabinet. Matt looked at the key without touching it. It isn't mine. It was in your bag. Those are not the same statement. A murmur moved through the ballroom. Matt heard a familiar voice behind the crowd. Dad! His 11-year-old daughter, Emma, stood beside a banquet table wearing the navy dress she had chosen because her father said she looked like her mother in it. Matt's face changed instantly. Not fear. Pain. Emma, stay with Mrs. Collins. What's happening? There's been a misunderstanding. Lauren turned toward security. Call the police. Emma stepped forward. My dad doesn't steal. The room became painfully quiet. Matt looked at Lauren, his voice lower now. Please don't let my daughter remember me this way. For half a second, Lauren hesitated. Then she looked at the empty case, the security key, and the access report glowing on the tablet beside her. Certainty. Returned. Secure him until officers arrive. Matt offered his hands without resistance. The cuffs closed quietly around his wrists. Emma covered her mouth. Matt ignored every executive staring at him and kept his eyes on his daughter. Look at me, Em. She did. You know who I am. You're my dad. Then hold on to that. As security began escorting him toward the ballroom doors, Matt glanced at the wall monitor displaying the electronic access log. Storage room entry. M. Sullivan, 8:46 p.m. He looked at the grandfather clock near the stage. 8:43, 3 minutes. Matt stopped. That system clock is wrong. Lauren frowned. Keep moving. 3 minutes fast. Across the ballroom, Chief Operating Officer Douglas Mercer slowly lowered his phone. Matt recognized him only as Lauren's longtime executive, but something about Mercer's expression felt wrong. He was not surprised. He was watching Matt the way a man watches a lock after turning the key. Then the security monitor refreshed. Matt's contractor profile appeared, followed by information no hotel database should have possessed. Matthew James Sullivan, former forensic accountant, federal financial crimes consultant. Sealed case access restricted. Matt stopped breathing for a moment. Lauren stared at the screen. You were federal? Matt did not answer. Beneath his old credentials appeared a search record dated 3 weeks earlier. Someone inside Whitaker Hospitality had searched his full legal name, then opened a reference to a 12-year-old financial crimes investigation. Matt read the final line and felt the past he had buried suddenly step into the ballroom with him. Mercer investigation. Evidence Annex sealed. He looked across the room again. Douglas Mercer was gone. The sapphire had never been the real target. Someone had recognized Matthew James Sullivan weeks before tonight and built an accusation around the one man who might still remember what the Mercer investigation had failed to prove. 36 hours earlier, Matt Sullivan had been standing in the kitchen of his modest 2-bedroom apartment in Astoria, trying to convince Emma that chocolate chip waffles were not an acceptable substitute for every major food group. They have eggs in them. Barely. Milk, technically. Emma smiled triumphantly. Then breakfast is balanced. Matt laughed and slid 2 waffles onto her plate. Morning sunlight came through the blinds, falling across school books unpaid utility bills, and a framed photograph of Matt with his late wife, Caroline. 4 years had passed since cancer took her, but Matt still kept her favorite ceramic mug beside the coffee maker. Grief had not made him bitter. It had simply taught him that ordinary mornings were worth protecting. "Dad, did you sign my field trip form?" "Front pocket of your backpack. You're suspiciously organized today. I have witnesses who say otherwise." After walking Emma to school, Matt returned home and unlocked a narrow drawer beneath his desk. Inside lay a faded federal consultant credential, several financial analysis notebooks, and an old courthouse photograph showing a younger Matt beside prosecutors and Judge Henry Caldwell. Beneath them sat a sealed envelope that had arrived the previous afternoon from the Federal Court Records Division. Matt opened it carefully. The letter concerned archived material from a financial crimes investigation closed 12 years earlier. Due to a records review, former consultants were being asked to verify whether they retained any authorized working copies. Matt read the case referenced twice, Mercer investigation. He folded the letter and placed it inside the drawer. Emma's voice suddenly came from the doorway. "What's all that?" Matt turned. She had forgotten her science notebook. "Old work. You wore suits. Once upon a time." She pointed toward the credential. "Were you a cop?" "No, I followed money." Emma frowned. "That sounds boring." Matt smiled. Usually, by 9 a.m., he was at the Whitaker Grand wearing his maintenance shirt and contractor badge. To everyone there, Matthew Sullivan fixed faulty door readers, network panels, and ballroom lighting controls. That anonymity suited him. He had left forensic accounting when Caroline became ill and never returned after her death. Emma needed a father who came home for dinner more than the government needed another man. Staring at spreadsheets until midnight. Shortly before lunch, Matt received a service ticket for the executive floor. A security reader outside the jewelry storage room was reporting intermittent errors. He connected his diagnostic tablet and immediately noticed an authentication entry under his own credential number. M. Sullivan. 2:16 a.m. Matt stared at it. At 2:16 that morning, he had been asleep 8 miles away. He opened the raw system log. His physical badge serial number had never touched the reader. Someone had created a ghost credential carrying his name and permissions. Matt quietly copied the log. Then he found something worse. 3 weeks earlier, an administrator account had searched the hotel's contractor database for his complete legal name, Matthew James Sullivan. The same account had requested outside background information and reached a sealed federal reference. Matt leaned closer. Footsteps approached. Douglas Mercer appeared at the end of the hallway in a tailored blue suit. "Everything all right, Sullivan?" "Someone duplicated my access credentials." Mercer barely reacted. "Probably a software problem." "Software problems don't usually research the technician fixing them." Mercer's smile faded for less than a second. "I'm sure security can sort it out." He walked away. Matt watched him enter the elevator, then reopened the administrator history. The search had not stopped at his federal employment record. Someone had entered 3 additional terms: Sullivan Forensic Accountant, Caldwell Federal Court, Mercer Evidence Annex. Matt felt the air leave his lungs. The surname could have been coincidence until that final phrase. Almost nobody knew Judge Caldwell had supervised the evidentiary hearings in the old investigation. Matt traced the administrator request to an executive authorization certificate. Most of its identifying data had been erased, but the backup server retained the original owner field. Matt read it once, then again. Douglas Mercer, Chief Operating Officer. The man Matt had just watched walk away had not discovered his identity by accident. Douglas Mercer had been searching for Matthew James Sullivan for 3 weeks, and whatever he feared was connected to a case Matt had believed was buried 12 years ago. Matt waited until the elevator doors closed behind Douglas Mercer before touching the system again. 12 years earlier, he had learned that suspicious people often revealed more through what they erased than through what they kept. He copied the ghost credential, the background searches, and Mercer's authorization certificate onto an encrypted service drive, then opened the jewelry storage controller. The Whitaker Sapphire was scheduled to remain inside that room until the charity auction. Its security system appeared normal until Matt expanded the automation queue. One command had been hidden beneath routine maintenance tasks. Friday, 8:46 p.m. Disable alarm. Accept M. Sullivan credential. Unlock storage access for 75 seconds. Restore system. Matt read it twice. Someone was preparing tomorrow night's evidence before tomorrow night's crime existed. He traced the command through several temporary administrator accounts. Each one had been created and deleted within minutes, but the backup server preserved fragments. The final authorization led to an executive security certificate connected to Mercer's office. Matt quietly inserted a checksum marker into the controller. If anyone changed the command, his tablet would know. Then another detail caught his attention. The system clock had been manually advanced 3 minutes. That explained how a future access record could appear convincing while placing Matt at the wrong location at the right time. Matthew. Lauren Whitaker's voice came from behind him. Matt turned. She stood near the corridor entrance, holding a folder. Is there a problem with the storage system? He considered telling her everything. I found an access irregularity. Serious? Potentially. Then send security a report. I'd rather preserve the raw logs first. Lauren studied him. Why? Because reports can summarize mistakes. Raw records, preserve them. She seemed mildly puzzled by the answer, but nodded and continued toward her office. Matt watched her leave. Lauren was not behaving like someone protecting a scheme. If anything, she seemed completely unaware that her own systems were being positioned around a future accusation. At 4:12 p.m., Matt received another service ticket. Jewelry storage inspection. Friday, 8:40 p.m. Assigned technician, Matthew Sullivan. He called dispatch. Who requested this? Executive operations. Which executive? No name attached. That isn't normal. No, it isn't. Matt ended the call. 6 minutes before the hidden unlock, someone intended to place him beside the storage room. He opened the ticket metadata and found Mercer's authorization certificate buried beneath the override. The architecture was becoming unmistakable. The following evening, Lauren would see a missing necklace, Matt's credential in the log, and Matt himself standing near the room. But why construct something so elaborate merely to steal jewelry? His checksum alert answered part of the question 20 minutes later. Someone had modified the hidden command. Matt opened the updated sequence. A new instruction had been added. Transfer restricted key to Sullivan tool bag. Physical evidence. Then another command appeared. Send automated alert 2L. Whitaker, at 8:46 p.m. Matt leaned back slowly. Mercer did not intend to accuse him personally. He intended Lauren to discover everything herself. Her reputation would give the manufactured evidence credibility before Matt could challenge it. His phone rang. Emma's school number appeared. Dad, you forgot I have rehearsal. Matt checked the time and closed his laptop. I'm leaving now. You said that 20 minutes ago. I am officially guilty of being late. Fair charge. Her laughter reminded him why he had abandoned federal work. On the subway to Queens, however, his tablet vibrated again. The system had captured one more administrator action before Matt disconnected. Mercer had opened a confidential law enforcement procedure file explaining when stolen property investigations permitted searches of a suspect's home, computers, storage, and archived records. Matt's expression went still. The sapphire was not the prize. The accusation was designed to make investigators search Matthew Sullivan's entire life. Beneath Mercer's query was a private note, containing 6 words. Find the annex before Sullivan does. Matt finally understood. Mercer believed something from the 12-year-old case still existed outside federal custody, and he thought Matt knew where it was. Friday night arrived beneath crystal chandeliers and soft piano music, but Matt Sullivan could feel the trap moving long before anyone else knew existed. The Whitaker Grand Ballroom was filled with donors, executives, local business leaders, and hospital representatives gathered around the charity auction displays. Emma stood beside Matt in her navy dress, studying the dessert table with determined concentration. 1 cupcake. 2. 1. 1.5. Matt smiled. You negotiate like your mother. Emma grinned, unaware that her father had checked his service tablet 6 times in 10 minutes. At 8:39 p.m., the scheduled maintenance ticket appeared. Jewelry storage inspection. Matt handed Emma over to Mrs. Collins from guest relations. Stay here until I get back. How long? 10 minutes. That means 20 in dad time. Matt kissed her forehead and crossed toward the secured corridor. At 8:40, his tablet registered his arrival. He deliberately did not scan his badge. At 8:43, the controller clock already displayed 8:46. Exactly 3 minutes fast. Then the hidden sequence began. The alarm temporarily disabled. Matt's cloned credential authenticated. The storage lock released. He watched every event appear on his tablet, while his actual badge remained clipped visibly to his belt. Somewhere nearby, someone was executing the plan. Matt stepped toward the storage door, but stopped when he noticed a housekeeping cart positioned beside the service elevator. It had not been there moments earlier. Before he could inspect it, his tablet showed another command. Automated alert delivered to Lauren Whitaker. Matt understood. The clock had started. Lauren appeared from the ballroom with 2 security officers. Matthew, what are you doing here? Exactly what someone scheduled me to do. Her expression tightened. What does that mean? Don't open that room until we preserve the raw logs. Why? Because somebody wants you to see what comes next. Lauren opened the storage room anyway. The velvet jewelry case was empty. The Whitaker sapphire was gone. Her face changed instantly. Where is it? I don't know. Your credential opened this door. My credential was cloned. And you happen to be standing here. Because someone created the maintenance ticket that brought me here. Lauren turned toward security. Search his equipment. Matt did not resist. An officer opened his canvas tool bag. Beneath his voltage meter was the restricted security key Matt had already seen listed in Mercer's hidden command. Lauren lifted it carefully. Explain this. It was planted. Everything seems to have an explanation with you. Matt looked directly at her. That should worry you, because someone knew exactly which explanation you wouldn't believe. Emma's voice suddenly came from behind them. Dad! Matt turned. She had left the ballroom and was standing at the corridor entrance. Emma, go back to Mrs. Collins. Why are they searching your stuff? Lauren's certainty returned when security displayed the access report. Credential. Key. Missing necklace. Contractor standing at the scene. Every piece fit because Mercer had designed it to fit. Call the police, Lauren said. And keep him here. Matt's eyes stayed on Emma as security secured his wrists. Please, he said quietly to Lauren. Not in front of my daughter. Emma stepped closer. He didn't do anything. Matt swallowed the emotion in his throat. Remember what I taught you. Truth doesn't change because people misunderstand it. Across the corridor, Douglas Mercer appeared near the service elevator. He looked surprised for everyone else. Matt knew better. Then Matt noticed the housekeeping cart was gone. His service tablet vibrated once before security collected it. A background process had captured the elevator manifest. At 8:44 p.m., Mercer's executive credential had authorized a private service elevator to the loading dock. Attached was a courier request for one sealed package leaving the hotel immediately. Matt stared at the destination, Mercer Private Records, Westchester County. Then one final metadata field appeared beneath it, Evidence Annex. Retrieval. Matt finally understood the whole design. Mercer had not stolen the sapphire to profit from it. He was transporting it to the same private archive connected to whatever had disappeared from the old federal case, while using Matt's arrest to send investigators searching in exactly the opposite direction. The security office beneath the Whitaker Grand felt colder than the ballroom upstairs, though Matt knew the temperature had not changed. What had changed was Emma's face. She sat beyond a glass partition beside Mrs. Collins, hands folded tightly in her lap, watching her father answer questions from 2 police officers while Lauren stood near the conference table. Douglas Mercer arrived minutes later, wearing the careful concern of an executive responding to a crisis. Has the necklace been recovered? He asked. Not yet, Lauren said. Mercer looked toward Matt. Then we have the man whose credentials opened the room, the security key from his bag, and video placing him nearby. Matt met his eyes. You forgot the courier. Mercer's expression barely moved. What courier? The one your executive credential authorized at 8:44. Lauren turned. Douglas, I approve dozens of deliveries. During my charity auction, Probably routine records. Matt spoke quietly. Destination was Mercer Private Records in Westchester County. For the first time, Mercer hesitated. Only a second, but Lauren saw it. What is stored there? She asked. Corporate archives, including something called Evidence Annex Retrieval. Mercer's face tightened. I have no idea what that means. Matt almost smiled, not from satisfaction, but recognition. 12 years earlier, men had used the same sentence when a financial trail finally reached somewhere uncomfortable. One officer collected Matt's tablet as evidence. Mr. Sullivan, if your recording confirms this courier request, investigators can follow up. Preserve the raw system image first, Matt said. Someone has administrator access, capable of changing logs. Mercer gave a dismissive sigh. Listen to him. He sounds less like a maintenance contractor every minute. Matt looked directly at him. Maybe that's what worried you. Silence filled the room. Emma appeared at the doorway before anyone responded. Can I talk to my dad? Lauren looked at Matt, then nodded. Emma stepped inside. Are you going to jail? They're asking questions. That's not what I asked. Matt's eyes softened. I'm coming home as soon as I can. Emma swallowed. Did you ever do something bad at your old job? Something that made this man hate you? Mercer looked away. Matt understood what his daughter was really asking. No, sweetheart. Then why you? Matt glanced toward Mercer. Because sometimes the easiest way to hide the truth is to make everyone suspicious of the person who might find it. Emma nodded slowly. I believe you. Those 3 words carried more weight than every accusation in the building. Later that night, police released Matt pending review while the evidence was preserved. By morning, however, Lauren's original statement, the access records, the security key, and surveillance footage had produced enough suspicion for prosecutors to continue the case. Matt's contract was suspended. His photograph appeared in local coverage of the missing sapphire. At breakfast, Emma quietly turned her phone face down. Kids at school saw it. Matt stopped pouring coffee. You don't have to go today. No, you don't. You told me truth doesn't change because people misunderstand it. Matt looked at her and realized she had given his own dignity back to him. 2 days later, he entered court wearing a charcoal suit he had not worn since Caroline's memorial service. Lauren sat behind the prosecution table. Mercer was absent. The state outlined its evidence while Matt listened calmly. Then Judge Henry Caldwell opened the defendant information sheet. His eyes narrowed. Mr. Sullivan, state your full legal name for the record. Matt rose. Matthew James Sullivan. Caldwell stopped completely. His pen remained suspended above the page. Slowly, he removed his glasses. Matthew James Sullivan? Yes, Your Honor. The judge stared at him in open disbelief. The forensic accountant from the Mercer investigation? Lauren turned sharply toward Matt. Caldwell leaned forward, recognition giving way to alarm. Mr. Sullivan, 12 years ago, you were the man who discovered that the missing evidence annex could identify the final beneficiary of the Mercer accounts. Matt nodded once. The courtroom fell silent. Then Caldwell looked toward the prosecution. Before this court hears another accusation against this man, I want to know one thing. Why is the name Douglas Mercer anywhere near this case? Judge Caldwell's question hung over the courtroom until even the rustle of paper stopped. The prosecutor glanced toward Lauren Whitaker, then down at the case file. Douglas Mercer is Chief Operating Officer of Whitaker Hospitality, Your Honor. His office also supervises executive security. Caldwell's expression tightened. That doesn't answer my question. Matt remained standing. Your Honor, I believe Mr. Mercer recognized me before the necklace disappeared. Lauren stared at him. Recognized you from what? Matt looked toward Caldwell. The investigation 12 years ago. The judge nodded slowly. Explain only what you can support. Matt opened his folder. 3 weeks before the auction, an executive administrator searched my full legal name, my federal consulting history, your name, and the Mercer Evidence Annex. That authorization traced back to Douglas Mercer. The prosecutor stood. Do you have preserved records? Yes. Matt handed over printed checksum reports created before the gala. Now compare those with the hotel's evidence. The first item was the electronic access log. The state says my credential opened jewelry storage at 8:46 p.m., but the controller clock was 3 minutes fast. The prosecutor checked the forensic report. That discrepancy is documented. So the real time was 8:43. Correct. Matt continued. Did investigators verify my physical badge touched that reader? A pause. No. The system recorded the credential number, which can be duplicated. Apparently. Lauren shifted uneasily. Matt moved to the surveillance image. The camera places me in the corridor. It does not show me entering the storage room or touching the necklace. Correct. And I was in that corridor because of a maintenance ticket. The prosecutor looked down. Yes. Who created it? Another pause. Executive operations. Whose authorization? The prosecutor studied the metadata. Douglas Mercer's office. Lauren's face lost some of its color. Matt did not look triumphant. He simply moved to the security key recovered from his tool bag. Was any identifying trace linking me to that key found? Nothing conclusive. Who controlled it before the auction? Executive security inventory. Again under Mercer's authority. Caldwell leaned back. 3 pieces of evidence that had once formed a perfect accusation now pointed toward the same executive. And the courier? He asked. The prosecutor opened another report. A package left the hotel loading dock at 8:47 p.m. using an executive authorization belonging to Mr. Mercer. Destination was Mercer Private Records in Westchester County. Lauren whispered, 3 minutes after the necklace disappeared. Matt corrected her gently. 3 minutes after the manipulated system said it disappeared. Caldwell looked toward Matt. You believe the sapphire was in that package. I believe the destination should be searched. The prosecutor's phone vibrated. He read the message and immediately requested a short recess. 20 minutes later, he returned with a federal liaison on speakerphone. Investigators had secured preservation orders for Mercer's private records facility and executive devices. A preliminary server recovery had already restored deleted searches from his Whitaker account. One search made Caldwell sit completely still. When does felony theft justify search of suspects' archive records? Lauren covered her mouth. Matt's theory was no longer merely a theory. Mercer had wanted law enforcement to search him. Why? The prosecutor asked. Matt answered quietly. Because he believed I retained something from the old investigation. Caldwell's eyes narrowed. The evidence annex? A copy, perhaps. But I never had it. Then the federal liaison interrupted. Investigators had recovered another deleted file from Mercer's account, created the day Matt was hired at the hotel. It contained a scanned photograph from the 12-year-old case. In the image, a younger Matt stood beside Judge Caldwell examining financial ledgers. Behind them, partly obscured, stood a young corporate analyst identified in the old record under another surname. Caldwell recognized him first. That's Mercer. Matt nodded. The liaison continued. Facial comparison and employment records confirmed it. Douglas Mercer had been inside the original financial network under the name Douglas Merrick. Lauren stared at the screen, stunned. Matt finally understood why the man had recognized him immediately. Mercer was not connected to the old case from a distance. He had been one of the people Matt's forensic work had nearly exposed, and the missing evidence annex was the only thing that had kept his name from becoming the center of the investigation. The courtroom remained silent as the old photograph stayed on the monitor. Douglas Merrick had been 29 then, a junior financial analyst whose name appeared only at the edges of the Mercer investigation. Douglas Mercer was 41 now, a respected executive trusted with millions of dollars and nearly every sensitive system inside Whitaker Hospitality. The years had changed his title, his surname, and his appearance, but not enough to hide him from the records. Lauren looked at Matt. You investigated him? Not directly. I followed the accounts. Did you know he was involved? I suspected his credentials were connected to several transfers. Matt paused, but suspicion wasn't proof. Judge Caldwell remembered. That was why you refused to certify the final forensic conclusion. Matt nodded. The numbers led toward Merrick, but the documents proving who controlled the destination accounts were inside the missing evidence annex. Lauren lowered her eyes. The contrast was impossible to miss. 12 years earlier, Matt had possessed months of suspicious financial evidence and still refused to call Douglas guilty without proof. Lauren had needed less than 5 minutes to call Matt a thief. Caldwell turned toward the prosecutor. What happened to Merrick after the investigation? According to federal records, he cooperated as a peripheral witness, was never charged, later changed his surname legally, and rebuilt his career. Because the annex disappeared, Matt said quietly. The prosecutor's phone vibrated again. He read the update and stood. Your Honor, investigators have entered Mercer private records pursuant to the warrant. Everyone waited. They recovered the Whitaker sapphire. Lauren closed her eyes. Matt showed no satisfaction. The prosecutor continued. It was inside a locked executive storage container registered to Douglas Mercer. Caldwell leaned forward. Anything else? Yes. The prosecutor looked toward Matt. Several boxes of historical financial records. Matt's expression changed. From the old investigation, one container bears a federal evidence inventory number. Caldwell immediately recognized the significance. Read it. The prosecutor did. Matt knew the number before the final digits were spoken. That's the evidence annex. Lauren whispered he had it. Matt stared at the table. For 12 years, investigators had assumed the annex had been destroyed or misplaced during evidence transfers. Instead, the one man who benefited most from its disappearance had apparently kept it. The prosecutor received scanned photographs minutes later. Inside were transaction ledgers, authorization sheets, ownership records, and original storage media. Matt studied the first pages displayed on the monitor. Go to the beneficiary schedule. The technician opened it. A chain of shell companies appeared, ending with an account controlled through a private holding entity. Beside the authorization field was a name, Douglas Merrick. Caldwell exhaled slowly. There it is. Matt shook his head. Not yet. Lauren stared at him. What more do you need? Authentication. Chain of custody. Verification that these records weren't altered. Caldwell gave the faintest nod. Even now, Matt refused to let certainty outrun evidence. The prosecutor then opened a recovered document from Mercer's executive laptop. It detailed the entire scheme. Clone Sullivan's credential, create maintenance ticket, alter security clock, plant restricted key, trigger Lauren's alert, move sapphire through private courier, encourage criminal search of Sullivan's archived possessions. One sentence appeared at the bottom. If Sullivan kept a copy of the annex, police will find it before he can use it. Lauren stared at those words. He used me. Matt answered quietly. He used what he knew you would believe. That hurt more because it was true. Another recovered message appeared, written the morning before the auction. Do not let Sullivan reach Caldwell. The judge will remember his name. Caldwell's face hardened. The entire frame had depended on Matt remaining nothing more than a desperate maintenance contractor in everyone's eyes. Then the prosecutor received one final update. Investigators had authenticated the storage facility's entry history. Douglas Mercer personally accessed the unit 3 hours before the gala and placed a new sealed package beside the evidence annex. The surveillance inventory identified that package as the container later found holding the Whitaker sapphire. For the first time, every part of the old mystery and the new accusation met in the same place, under the same name, and inside the same locked room. By noon, the prosecution no longer had a coherent case against Matt Sullivan. The Whitaker sapphire had been recovered from Douglas Mercer's private storage unit. The security clock had been manipulated, Matt's credential had been cloned, and the restricted key found in his tool bag had come from inventory controlled by Mercer's department. Yet, Judge Caldwell refused to turn suspicion into judgment, simply because the direction of suspicion had changed. We will apply the same standard to Mr. Mercer that Mr. Sullivan deserved from the beginning, he said. Matt looked toward Lauren. She understood exactly why the words mattered. A federal forensic specialist joined the hearing remotely and confirmed that the evidence annex seals matched archived inventory photographs from 12 years earlier. The storage media inside also carried identifiers consistent with the original Mercer investigation. Authentication is ongoing, the specialist explained, but preliminary review indicates these are the missing records. Caldwell nodded. And the beneficiary documents? They identified Douglas Merrick as an authorized controller of accounts receiving approximately $18 million through intermediary companies. Lauren whispered, Douglas Mercer. The records indicate Merrick and Mercer are the same individual, the specialist replied. Matt remained quiet. He had waited 12 years for that missing connection, but vindication did not feel like victory. It felt like a door finally opening in a hallway he had stopped walking years ago. The prosecutor then presented recovered messages from Mercer's laptop. One showed that Mercer recognized Matt on the day Whitaker Hospitality approved his contractor credentials. Another instructed an administrator to create the ghost credential. A third ordered the 3-minute clock adjustment. The final sequence described the gala in chillingly simple terms. Get Sullivan near storage. Let Whitaker discover him. Make the evidence obvious. Lauren lowered her gaze. Mercer had understood her impatience, her confidence, and her instinct to protect the company publicly. He had not needed to control her. He only needed to predict her. I did exactly what he expected, she said. Matt answered without cruelty. Yes. Why didn't you tell me everything when you first found the ghost credential? Because I was a contractor accusing your COO, and you trusted him. Lauren looked at him. You thought I wouldn't believe you. I thought you would believe your hierarchy before you believed your evidence. She had no defense. Caldwell turned to the prosecutor. Status of the charges against Mr. Sullivan? The prosecutor rose. The state moves for immediate dismissal. The evidence now establishes that Mr. Sullivan was deliberately framed. Granted, Caldwell looked directly at Matt. Mr. Sullivan, your record in this matter will reflect that dismissal. Matt released a breath he seemed to have been holding since Emma watched those cuffs close around his wrists. Outside the courtroom, Emma stood beside Mrs. Collins. The moment Matt appeared, she hurried toward him. Is it over? For me, yes. They know you didn't do it? They know. Emma wrapped her arms around him. Matt held her quietly. Lauren stopped several feet away, uncertain whether she had earned the right to approach. Matt, he looked up. I owe you more than an apology. You owe Emma one first. Lauren nodded. Then I'll give it where everyone can hear it. Before Matt could answer, the prosecutor stepped into the hallway, carrying a newly recovered federal memorandum. Mr. Sullivan, Judge Caldwell thought you should see this. Matt opened it. The document was 12 years old, written days before the Evidence Annex disappeared. Douglas Merrick had requested Matt's removal from the forensic team, specifically warning that Sullivan's reconstruction would identify the final beneficiary accounts. At the bottom was a handwritten response from Caldwell, request denied. Sullivan remains assigned. Matt stared at the words. The judge had remembered his name because 12 years earlier, he had personally protected Matt's place on the investigation. Mercer had remembered it for the opposite reason. Matthew James Sullivan was the name attached to the one man who had come closest to exposing him then, and whose quiet insistence on evidence had finally exposed him now. 3 weeks later, Matt returned to the Whitaker Grand through the same marble lobby where his daughter had watched strangers treat him like a criminal. This time Emma walked beside him holding his hand. No security officer stopped them. No one searched his tool bag. Lauren had gathered employees, executives, contractors, and several charity committee members in the ballroom because she had insisted that the correction be made in the same place as the accusation. The empty sapphire display remained near the stage. Lauren stepped forward without a lawyer or prepared statement. Emma, may I speak to you first? Emma looked at Matt. He nodded. Lauren approached the 11-year-old slowly. I accused your father before I understood the truth. I trusted evidence that looked convincing without asking whether someone had designed it to look convincing. You watch your father leave this room in handcuffs because of a decision I made. Emma listened silently. Lauren continued. Your father did not steal anything. He was innocent. I was wrong. And everyone who heard my accusation deserves to hear me say that. The ballroom became completely still. Emma glanced around at the same faces that had once stared at Matt. So everybody knows now? Everybody knows. Emma nodded. Good. Then she looked at Lauren with the uncomplicated mercy children sometimes possess before adults teach them to protect their pride. I forgive you. Lauren's composure nearly broke. She turned toward Matt. Sterling Whitaker Hospitality will compensate you for the suspension and damage to your reputation. The board also authorized me to offer you a permanent position as Director of Forensic Compliance. Matt smiled gently. That's generous. You're qualified beyond anything your contractor file suggested. That file was accurate. Lauren frowned. It said Maintenance Systems Specialist. That's what I do now. You could do much more. Matt looked at Emma. More isn't always the same as better. He explained that after Caroline became ill, federal investigations had become nights away from home, missed dinners, and phone calls made from courthouse hallways. When she died, he made Emma a quiet promise that his daughter would never have to compete with another case for whatever remained of their family. I'm proud of the work I did, he said, but I don't need an old title to prove I matter today. Lauren lowered her eyes. That was the lesson she had missed from the beginning. She had assumed a maintenance contractor was easier to suspect than an executive because one title sounded ordinary and the other sounded respectable. Mercer had built his entire plan inside that assumption. Over the following months, federal investigators authenticated the recovered Evidence Annex and reopened the unresolved financial case. The records connected Douglas Mercer, formerly Douglas Merrick, to the beneficiary accounts Matt had traced 12 years earlier. The cloned credential, manipulated clock, courier records, planted security key, and recovered sapphire became separate evidence in the investigation surrounding the attempt to frame Matt. Matt cooperated when asked, but he never celebrated another man's downfall. Justice, he told Emma, was not revenge wearing better clothes. Judge Caldwell later mailed him the old memorandum, denying Mercer's request to remove him from the original investigation. Beneath the copied page, Caldwell had written a short note. I remembered your name because you never allowed certainty to outrun evidence. Matt placed it beside Caroline's photograph and his faded federal credential. Then he closed the drawer. On Monday morning, he packed Emma's lunch, argued with her about whether waffles counted as balanced nutrition, and drove to work. Months later, Lauren passed him the hotel lobby while he repaired a malfunctioning access panel. Still turning down my offer? She asked. Still asking? Probably. Matt smiled. Then probably. That afternoon, Emma asked him the question she had been saving. Dad, did Judge Caldwell save you because he knew who you were? Matt thought for a moment. No. Knowing my name made him look closer. Evidence saved me. Then why did everyone freeze when he recognized you? Matt looked at his daughter. Because sometimes people finally see the person they should have respected before they knew his history. Emma squeezed his hand. They walked toward home beneath the evening lights, ordinary among thousands of strangers. Matt had lost his reputation for a few painful days and recovered something more important in the process. His daughter had watched the world misunderstand him, and she had also watched him refuse bitterness when the truth returned. Dignity had never needed a courtroom, a federal credential, or an important name. It had been there all along, quiet enough to be overlooked and strong enough to remain when everything else was taken away.